Very kind of you. Well, boy, folks, I tell you, this fundraising scandal has now reached Al Gore. Well, it's true. Gore is apparently in trouble now. They say he had been during the campaign working the phones at the White House to solicit donations to the campaign, but he was using his DNC credit card. So that makes it, so makes it okay. And he said he's very proud of his work because he not only raised millions for the Democrats, he got 12 people to switch back to AT&T. So, the critics are saying he was a little strong-arm with his sales tactics. One donor said what he told them was, try the Democratic Party for 10 days. If you are not completely... If you are not completely satisfied, keep the unused political access as our gift. You can't do better than that. Well, interesting news for our school children. The USDA has announced that you can substitute now on school lunch menus yogurt for meat. Kids, which I think is good, yeah. Their next big project, they're going to try to do something about getting the lavatory key off that big hunk of wood. So they're working for you. Now here's terrible news, sad news. The cocaine industry in this country apparently is booming as never before. Americans use about 240 tons of cocaine a year. And apparently the drug dealers are getting so cocky about it, they're thinking of changing the name of the business to America Online. And finally, this is ugly and controversial, but Operation Rescue, I'm sure you know, the very pro-life folks, they have started their demonstrations outside of high schools holding up pictures of fetuses, you know, that didn't make it. And I guess it's working because I noticed that at the Beverly Hills High School here, the kids today canceled their weekly meeting of the abortion club. So, anyway, thanks for coming. It's all been satirized for your... Welcome to the show, and let us meet our panel. You've seen him in Get Shorty and Wayne's World 2, the pit bull of comedy, Bobby Slayton. She is the author of Momentum, Women in American Politics, and a Republican Senate nominee for Michigan, Ronna Romney.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. All right. Time magazine called him the most influential private citizen in America. He was Bill Clinton's chief election strategist, and his book is called Behind the Oval Office. Dick Morris. Dick. Welcome back, sir. Nice to see you again. And finally, he is the writer and director behind A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Hills Have Eyes, and Last House on the Left. His huge new hit is Scream, Wes Craven. Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here, Dick, because you know where I was this weekend? I was at the White House.
Did Al Gore hit you up for any money?
No. It was a lovely reception. Cash bar.
You know, he...
But,
you know the strong-arm tactics he used?
Al Gore?
Yeah. He's really boring on the phone, so he threatened, like, never to get off until you gave money.
I've been witness to that method before.
Did you really say that?
Anyway, I was there for the Ford's Theater. I'm sure you know that the president attends every year, and they were very gracious. My mother, I was there to celebrate her 78th birthday, and they were really great to her. They made her feel like she was 74. No, they did. They're wonderful. But I guess the scandal here that we're going through is pretty much dependent on the fact that to get elected, you have to buy literally hundreds of millions of dollars of television advertising. And therefore, you have to sell something. You got to sell something. And what they have been selling, there's a list here from a memorandum, 2 seats on Air Force One. This is from the Democrats. They're pretty much saying this is what we got to sell if we want to get elected. 2 seats on Air Force One, 6 seats at all private dinners, radio address spots to sit there when he gives his radio address.
You have to stand.
Well, whatever it is.
They don't give you seats. You have to stand.
White House
video,
events.
So people can't tell.
Right.
And obviously the Lincoln bedroom. It seems to me what they're selling is his stardom. That he's the biggest star in the country because he's the president, and that's what you're selling. Now, if you have to sell something, what I was saying last week, and I'm going to ask this panel, isn't that not the worst thing to sell?
The bedroom?
Any
It's certainly
of
gotten
that.
him in a lot of trouble.
It's the second oldest profession.
Everybody should be able. I was going to say, I wish I'd have had the Lincoln bedroom
Yeah.
to use when I might, but that probably wouldn't have
Yeah,
been
but what's so
appropriate.
great about staying there? It's not like, I mean, have you ever stayed in there? Do you get anything? Is it
No,
like
I was-
Spectrovision, the Spice
You
Channel?
probably
Is it-
get your.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's like,
No.
what do you get?
They have,
You have room service?
They have a White House photographer.
And you get to steal the
I
extras.
just, I just want to. I just want to put this in perspective. In politics, when you're being hit on a negative that is okay, it's better than being hit on a negative that hurts you. So I'm really gratified that they're upset that men stayed in the White House overnight for money.
Oh, I see.
I mean,
Right.
given where I used to work for Clinton, and that's not a bad
Dick,
thing
that's
to be hit
not
for.
an area you should really get into
Right.
yourself. But, but
But seriously, Bill, to answer your question, when you're running, we spent $85 million on ads in the campaign.
Right.
The Democrats raised about 300, the Republicans raised a little over 500, but both sides raised a lot. The point is, though, that if he didn't run those ads, there's no way he would have won the election.
Right.
So they're getting on Gore's case for this, and I think he should get the Congressional Medal of Honor for it. Because if he didn't run those ads, we'd be talking about President Bob Dole and Vice President Jack Kemp's fundraising practices instead of Clinton and Gore.
surely you don't mean that in a literal way, the Medal of Honor.
Well, maybe the Purple Heart,
Okay, so TV is really the villain here.
Yeah,
Is
well-
that because people live by TV, they vote by TV,
And you'll pardon me, the stations charge a lot.
and they charge a lot, absolutely.
But we still fund presidential races as taxpayers. They still went out, Republicans and Democrats alike, and raised $2.6 billion total. And they still had to resort to taking all types of money from illegal sources. And they say, well, we couldn't help ourselves because we needed all this money. It's wrong. And I think the greatest wrong, we're talking about the things they've done illegally. I think the greatest crime is the way they raise money legally. And right now, and it really is. We were
That's the
talking
point.
backstage about
It's
Fred
unseemly,
Thompson.
but it's legal.
And right now, what's happening? Fred Thompson, the senator from Tennessee,
Yes.
movie star, wants to have Senate hearings on all fundraising practices. He wants to open them up to the public and let everybody see them and hear them.
Right.
And guess what? The Republicans are trying to kill that. And you know how much it's
Yes.
going to cost? $6.7 million. Huang could raise $6.7 million in a weekend, probably at a Buddhist temple.
But when you see somebody...
Right. We should chip in and fund that
When you have to
investigation.
raise this kind of money, and you see somebody coming along who says, I don't want a contract, I don't want a job, I don't want you to veto a bill, I just want to be able to spend
Right.
a night in a bedroom
That's-
or have a photo taken with you, you see him coming and you thank God he's there. I mean,
That's
if
what I'm-
somebody's enough of a
Right.
schmuck to give $100,000 for that, it's a whole lot better than
Yeah.
trading something important.
Yeah, but people that have $100,000 to throw away aren't schmucks, by and large, so they usually want something else.
That's right.
Well, that's it.
But
it
they
isn't where
don't.
they slept, it's
Oh,
what
yes,
they did
they
when they
do.
were awake.
I don't think so.
Oh, yes,
No,
they do.
because
Think
this is,
so? Oh,
as I was
yes,
saying
they
the other night, this is a Planet Hollywood culture. If you
Uh-huh.
can sleep near, Judge Reinhold's jockstrap from a movie,
That is
that's...
appealing.
I don't know why it's appealing, but it is to people.
Well, what's it going to do for you? I mean, Chevy Chase was on TV the other night. He's
Yeah.
talking about how, he had access to the president because he stayed in the Lincoln bedroom. He donated money to the campaign fund, and his movies still suck. He got nothing out of it.
Well, you deal with Chevy. We have to take a break. We'll be back.
Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher, brought to you by Chevrolet Trucks.
If you're planning to be in the Los Angeles area and would like free tickets to Politically Incorrect, call 213-852-2655.
Okay, we're talking about access to the White House and politics, but let me ask if you think, as I do, that it's part of a larger problem in this country, which is that everything is about access. It's a real velvet rope culture we live in, don't you think? Where everything has a gradation. If you get into a club, then there's a room within the club. If you want to, I noticed that at the mall this year, if you want to see Santa, you know, for the kids, it's like $7 to just sit on his lap, $10 for a picture with him, another $5 if you want a ho ho ho.
But you know, for $1,000 you can sleep in his bed.
That's right.
But you know,
And get special favors. And then they'll get a bigger present as well.
but you know, Wes, I know Bill Clinton. For $1 million, he would have slept on the floor and let someone sleep in his bed.
That's right. But the access does buy you something, and I think we're getting away from it. Access buys you something, and the reason these people give so much money is because they get something, and I think it's naive not to think that they get
Yeah, but
something.
Ronna, what they
We've got
mean-
9,000 pages of tax loopholes
Yeah.
for people because
But-
they've donated
But
things
Ronna,
to the
honestly,
government.
look, honestly, both the Democrats
Yes.
and Republicans raise money in about the same way with about equal degrees of corruption,
I
which
agree.
is basically a lot
I
of
agree.
it. But the average donor basically is a really rich person who's giving money for an ego trip. In other words, he's got all the money, or she's got all the money they want. What they want is a photo to put on the wall of
Well,
themselves and the
but that's-
president.
Now, do you think Wang was on an ego trip? He was on a mission.
No, those foreign people, they were absolutely, what they
Right.
wanted was a photo so they could get business in their own country
Right.
as portraying themselves as the
Do you know what
president's
the
best
funniest
friend.
thing of
They
this whole
always
thing
want
is?
photos.
I have a bridge in
Is
Brooklyn.
Bill,
I'd love to show you.
the funniest thing of this whole thing is Bill Clinton acting as a character witness for Al Gore. I mean, that's probably the first we've seen in a long time.
Sort of like having Jack the
Take,
Ripper as a medic.
take it where you can get it.
I was hooting yesterday as I watched
I was
him
once
do
on
that.
on a reception line in the White House, and I was standing there with my wife waiting to greet Bill and Hillary, and the guy in front of me had a cell phone that he took out of his pocket, and he said, "Do you think this is true story? Do you think the president would mind if I called my mother?" And his idea was when he got up to Clinton, he'd dial his mother and he'd put her on the phone with him. And I just figured that this guy really had a repressed childhood. And then he gets right up to Bill. He goes through, it starts ringing. His 84-year-old mother had the tape on. "Ma, you failed me once again."
Why were you on a reception line, Dick?
You know why? Because I needed to talk to him that night, and it would be like 1 in the morning before he'd get home. And I needed to give him about 3 minutes worth of stuff, and the easiest way to do it was to just stand online and go do it as I was seeing him. Of course, that was the night that I...
That's frightening.
That was the night that I...
You got to get online with the...
With the hoi polloi.
You should have
That was
donated
the
more.
night that I forgot my tuxedo. I forgot my tuxedo, and I borrowed one from a waiter at the hotel, and he was shorter than I was, believe it or not, and it came up to here on me. But I was pulling it off until my wife told Hillary about it, and then she starts cracking up. And she said, "I know somebody that did that once," and she tells Clinton about it, and then the next day it's in the Washington Post. So
This is like a bad Chevy Chase movie, isn't it?
then the next...
This is a Wes Craven movie right here. Wes should do a movie.
You know what? I would pay to stay
Wes,
in the Freddy
you need to
Krueger room
do
in
a
Wes
movie on
Craven's
this.
house. That's what I would do.
Then the
It
next...
could be too scary.
Yeah.
Then the next time I saw Al Gore, he came into a meeting and he went like this. He said, "Yours?"
Say, why
I think what
does
we
it
all-
have to cost so much money? I mean,
That's right.
the airwaves supposedly are the property of the American people. Why not, you know, give these guys X amount of hours that's free? Put them on American Gladiators against each other. And, you know.
We have to take another break. We'll be right back. Okay. All right.
My side's much better, by the way. Sorry.
You are booked on the wrong show. That is a whole different thing that we do here. I wanted to ask about this issue of redlining, which has got a lot of people up in arms. It's about delivering, in the cases that I've been reading about, pizza to neighborhoods that are unsafe. It was an issue in San Francisco last year, and this couple of months ago in Kansas City, a high school ordered $450 worth of pizza from Pizza Hut. It was a party for honor roll students, either that or the
Oh, I thought it was
anti-marijuana program. Oh, yeah. And they refused to deliver because they said the neighborhood was too rough. And the question really is, should our lawmakers take more seriously the safety of the driver going in there or a paying customer's right to get his pizza.
You know, in the Constitution, it doesn't say anywhere that you have a right to get pizza delivered to your house. You know? And if you go to South Central Los Angeles, I mean, if I had a teenage son, I mean, who wants their kid delivering pizza to a horrible neighborhood? It's not a racial thing. Right. It's just a bad neighborhood. Have the cops deliver the pizza. I mean, they're, you know, they're driving around anyway. They're hanging out in front of the donut shops. Let them wait in front of Domino's. Put the siren on. That pizza's going to get there in under 30 minutes or less. And it's going to be hot.
Well, that's very glib, of course.
He's right. He's right.
He's right?
He's absolutely right.
He's right. There is...
Let's have a constitutional amendment about pizza.
Yeah,
what a good idea.
When I first started in the film business and I was having a hard time getting work, I drove a cab in New York. The year I drove a cab in New York, 8 people were shot and killed. And the whole thing was, don't pick anybody up of color going north. And I did, but I got robbed. So, you know, there's a certain reality factor. It didn't have to do necessarily with the color of the people. It just had to do with certain neighborhoods are dangerous, and the people that are stuck there don't like that fact either. So it seems to me, if you're running a business, you either send your people in or not. If you don't, maybe a competitor will, and they'll have full body armor. But you know, you have to take that into account. I mean, it's not like the post office.
A pizza delivered to Elm Street would probably. That is, everyone would go.
It comes
legally,
pre-sliced.
there's no right. As long as there's no federal money involved, that's not subsidized pizza.
Right.
The government can't insist that it get delivered somewhere.
But you can't.
Subsidized pizza, you got a problem.
But you can see the other side of it, can't you? I mean, can't you see that people in minority neighborhoods would say this is a terrible prejudice, and that we should be able to get whatever anyone else gets?
But anybody can start a business that will deliver it there.
In fact, they could start their own pizza parlor there.
Move to a better neighborhood.
Oh, no.
You know what?
It is. Can you expect somebody to come and risk their life to deliver you a pizza?
By the way, you know, you mentioned Clinton getting pizza. You know that in 1993 and 94, the staff used to send out for pizza, and he hated it because he wasn't allowed to eat the pizza. He's not allowed to eat anything they don't cook in the White House. Well, so he'd be sitting there with stuff that the French chef would cook, and he hates it because he's sort of McDonald's prone, and everybody else would be having pizza, and he couldn't touch it. So finally in '95, he said no ordering out for pizza. So we all had to eat the garbage that they served. But the funniest one was...
Sorry, White House.
So staying in the White House, you have access to the president's pizza. How great is that?
Yeah. And once...
In fact, for $1,000, you can eat the president's pizza.
Once he got up to dessert, and the butler came in and he said, "What's for dessert?" And the butler said 2 or 3 things, and Hillary said, "Don't we have some of the pie left over from last night?" And he said, "How about the layer cake we served at the state dinner and whatever?" And he said, "Bring one of each." And he literally brought 7 pieces of cake and pie and everything. And they were arranged in a semicircle around the president. And Hillary said, "Bill." And then literally he ate every single one of them during the meeting.
I can't believe that.
Did he really?
Dick has an anecdote about some lint in the presidential navel that I think we'd all like to hear, but we'll have to take a commercial when we come back.
Attention, people of Earth, pay attention, I have something important to say.
The most shocking thing about this movie
Kind of tingles.
See? It tingles.
is how much people love it.
Now you made me speechless.
Rolling Stone calls it a comic firecracker with a surprising human touch.
You've finally done it.
Oh, yes.
It's incredibly funny. And Siskel and Ebert say Howard turns out to be a softie. 2 thumbs up.
How about that, Howard Stern?
Private Parts, rated R. Special screening 10 p.m. Thursday at select theaters.
I'd like to tell you a little story that illustrates why 106.7 Light FM plays the most music with hardly any talk. Once there was a little blonde-haired girl. She was a perfect angel, except for one thing. She talked all the time. Actually, it wasn't her fault. She was the middle child and she had to fight for attention. But anyway, one day, she suddenly realized that nobody was listening anymore. So the moral is just shut up and people will listen to you.
106.7 Light FM, the most music with less talk.
All right, join us tomorrow. We're going to have Harry Shearer, Leslie Abramson, Lawrence Otis Graham, and Zubin Mehta. Okay, we just got about a minute and a half, but I did want to throw this out. Now, I had never been to the White House before this weekend, and I'm sure after what I said at the event, I'll never be invited back. But I was struck by how regal it is. You would never guess that you were in a democracy. It looks like something out of Amadeus. You walk in, there's this band playing, a whole orchestra there. Every room is sumptuous. At the show, you know, we all sat there, you know, waiting for the president to arrive. Nothing happens before and then he comes. Everybody has to stand, and they you know, it's like something out of the Middle Ages. The trumpeter, and the president comes in. The second he sits down, the show starts. I mean, his ass wasn't on the seat 2 seconds.
Yeah, but
Natalie Wood was singing.
The same thing happens when you come out here, you know?
Well, Bobby, that's different. Now, no. Believe me, you would not think you were living in a democracy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's
Well, when they have a state dinner, it is absolutely gorgeous. I was at one dinner where you're in the White House, and then the music is in a tent in the back, a large tent. And as you walk by, everybody's every 10 feet, people are with violins serenading you as you walk down. But you know the thing that to me is the most poignant about the White House? It's the symbols of a republic. They have this place where you wait.
It looks like a palace. It looks like Versailles.
This
it
one
looks
thing
nothing like a democracy.
I actually find it very sort of sustaining and relaxing that there's a lot of gore and violence.